My name is Jack McLean. I am your host, and tonight my guest is Ben Stanley, the founder of Enhance Football. Enhance Football helps Aussie rules footballers improve your skill and AFL performance with online kicking analysis and/or private coaching. Before we start tonight's episode, our mission here at Prepare Like a Pro is to empower aspiring athletes and staff with practical knowledge from some of the industry's most inspiring individuals and to strengthen the AFL community. If you like the show, please show your support by following us on Instagram and subscribing to the podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Welcome, Ben. Thanks for jumping on, mate.
Yeah, g'day, Jack. How are you, mate?
I'm going well. It was, only a couple of weeks ago where we were doing this all again, but now we get to dive into your story a little bit with a bit more detail anyway, which will be good.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that a couple of weeks ago with all the kicking experts and things like that. And I rewatched it only a couple of days later. I actually listened to it when I was driving home from Toowoomba. So that entertained me for a couple of hours. It was really good. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I've had a few footballers reach out and say, "Where's the kicking podcast? I want to listen to Ben Chucko's episode." I said, we haven't quite released it yet on the podcast, but you can watch it on the YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube's good now. If you've got the premium account, I didn't realize this recently. It acts like a podcast. You can switch off your phone and actually listen now. Which is handy. But yeah, for the podcasters out there, it is coming. We'll release the bite-sized episodes in the next coming weeks. I think Choco's is next week, and yourself, Ben, in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned. It
was really interesting when they. I had to leave, but then when I re-listened to it, when they started interacting, and I think Choco sort of started it, where he just was really interested in the torpedo and picking Nathan Chapman's brain and all that. And it was really interesting to hear the discussions and them all learning off each other. And I just thought it was brilliant.
The biggest takeaway for me, because it's not my area of expertise, is that there's a lot of momentum with what you guys are creating online in face-to-face with, I guess, putting a bit more time and effort into how important skill is for football. But also the tactical, ability that how you can influence the game, like how they'll kick. If you can kick well over a zone, you're going to all those defensive zones that everyone puts so much time and energy into. If you can kick it over the top, it's a pretty exciting thing to think about.
Yeah, I just got sent a link actually to I think it was Footy Classified, and they were talking to Matty Lloyd and Ross Lyon about the value of kicking, and just about how we all look into these tactics and structures, which are fantastic. But at the end of the day, goal kicking is the most important thing in our game. And Matty Lloyd was going through it. Ross Lyon actually he didn't mention Kevin Ball's name, but he mentioned they had a biomechanist when he was at Fremantle. So I'm guessing that was Kevin Ball. And they really honed in on the kicking technique. And then they asked, do clubs have a goal kicking coach? And they sort of come to a consensus at the moment, probably not. Some clubs may, but they don't have that sole person working on goal kicking. It might be a forwards coach that occasionally, jumps in and says he's a bit of a hand with a routine and things like that. But there's a real space for it, I think. Goal kicking's number one. Kicking is king. Get the experts in and, help out if people need it.
Yeah, 100%, mate. It's Kevin did mention that Ross was huge on it, and he gave Kev a huge license in bringing him over it's actually quite an interesting role with he was a biomechanist, but also he worked in the gym improving their strength and conditioning to help their kicking too, which is awesome. But and that's something that was another takeaway actually, how Choco, since being at Melbourne, is they do 15 minutes of elite kicking development every session. Like you said, it's just fundamental. But like Matthew Lloyd with his goal kicking, if you can kick and get that routine down pat, it's pretty effective. It certainly did well for him.
And they put up a couple, I think they mentioned Aaron Norton at the moment, who's an absolute star of the game, but his goal kicking lets him down a little bit. And all they pointed out was, and they're spot on, is that he just doesn't get the momentum through the footy that your Locketts did, that your Dunstals did, that your Lloyds did. They even had Peter McKenna up there, Bernie Quinlan, all those. When you break it down, they got their body in line to the target and they got momentum there. So, there's one thing for him, that there's a takeaway. I'd be listening to Matty Lloyd if I was him.
Well, before we start with your journey, why do you reckon you're in the industry, in the private sector, and also working closely with Bell and the professional athletes? So you got your finger on the pulse. How far off do you reckon it is before every club does have a kicking expert, either part-time or potentially full-time, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's got to be close, doesn't it, Jack? Like it has to be. I think we're realizing now that skill and kicking is king in the game, and it just hurts you if you got a couple of players on your team that can't execute the skill. So I suppose it's all very relevant to the COVID situation and how the AFL is going, and you know more about that than me, Jack, and what sort of budgets they've got at the moment. But I think there's a huge space, whether it's part-time or even a full-time role for a skills or kicking coach in AFLW 100% and in AFL men's as well. Yeah.
I guess for the coaches listening, that's an opportunity to set yourself apart, do some workshops, and make that a real strength of your coaching, because it's obviously super competitive to be an assistant coach at an AFL club. But if you can be the kicking coach, that might not be as competitive, do you think?
Yeah, I would say so. Like you look around, and social media isn't everything, but there's a few of us on social media, and it's growing, isn't it? Like there's starting to be a bit more interest in it, which is great. So yeah, it's getting around, the word's spreading, and I know myself. Before the AFLW season, the Brisbane Lions AFLW team, Craig got in contact with me just from seeing what I'm doing on social media, and did his homework, and I was down there once or twice a week during pre-season, just honing in and just working with the girls in small groups and individually. So and we saw some really good results, but like I would love more time. I'd love to make that at any club, that full-time capacity to be able to work with people in small groups, just to hone in on their skills. Could be working. An example probably would have been working with Zimmy Farquharson, who was I think she won the Rising Star for Lions in round 2, I think. But just working with her on her snapshots, just working on the grip and body position and routine of a snapshot, and little things like that. Like when she kicked the snap goal, like I was jumping off my seat. I'm like, look at that, Zimmy, like, that's awesome, And it's not necessarily, it's her commitment to do the extra stuff and just to take on the advice and things like that. So I think there's a huge space for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's super exciting for people like yourself that are on the forefront, but also for guys like Kevin Ball that the success that they had, like Ross Lyon's talking about in the media, that's got to have a bit of weight. So there's momentum behind it in the industry, that's for sure. So all the coaches listening, jump on board, and because do you do workshops with coaches? Is that something you guys offer?
Yeah, it's becoming more and more popular, and we've got about 3 or 4 different coaching modules that we deliver, but the most popular one is how to teach kicking. And the way we teach it to females, males, juniors, it's all the same. So it doesn't matter what age, what level. We just strip it right back to the basics and go through the fundamentals. And I do the same thing, with senior men or the AFLW girls that I do with I had a 13-year-old girl yesterday, same process. So yeah, the how to teach kicking is a really popular module that particularly a lot of clubs in Queensland are taking up at the moment. So yeah, it's going good.
Well, yeah, let's dive into your journey, mate. Let's take us to the very beginning.
Yeah.
At what age did you discover you had a passion for coaching, and we'll go into this, specializing in kicking, I guess, later on, but coaching itself.
Yeah, I suppose I was always that type of kid that was very interested in the teaching and coaching side of things. Like I always wanted to be a PE teacher, and I'm still doing that now as the enhanced football stuff. So it was something that I was passionate about early, and I got into little assistant coaching jobs when I was really young. And by the time I think I was 27, I was captain coaching a side, which was a big challenge because you're coaching guys that are 38 and legends of the club, and they're listening to a 27-year-old that there's challenges there as well. But I guess the journey probably started with the PE teaching. That's where I got my teaching experience, and you see a lot of great coaches around the AFL industry. A lot of them have got teaching backgrounds, don't they? So I think it's set me in good stead there.
And was that the plan with teaching, or you also had a passion with teaching and the passion for coaching just started to overtake?
Yeah. So yeah, my passion's always been with footy. And, that's always been a huge part of my life. And the teaching has been there as a passion as well. But I think it's really helped the coaching in football as well, just with people skills and management, organisation, all that really important stuff that you see, your Chris Fagans and those type of guys are so good at. I think teaching is a great groundwork for what we do, I suppose, working with all different age groups as well.
Yep. And you obviously had some strength to be recognised as a player coach at the age of 27. Like you mentioned, there was some older peers. So was that something that then you started to grow confident yourself about being a coach when you were taking on that title, or were you already pursuing leadership positions at that stage and it was something that you attracted?
Yeah. I guess I was always involved in leadership positions as a player from that 22 to 27, and played under some great captains, great coaches. And so you learn from then. And then being a young teacher, like qualified at the age of whatever it was, I think 23, I went into the coaching position fairly confident as a 27, 28-year-old, because that's what you do for a job every day. You're out in front of a class and you're delivering content and things like that. So it's really, football was always my expertise. So I was even more confident in that area when you're in front of a group. I suppose the main challenge was that the age, who is this 27-year-old coming in, but it's all good experiences. So yeah, I think that was a great sort of foundation to get into coaching early. And also did a lot with the AFL, just as a sort of a development officer type role where you go around to schools. And so that's what I did when I was at uni. And that was a great sort of progression as well and helped my teaching out.
It sounds like you were busy. You were keeping yourself productive through that period.
Yeah.
Is that advice from any influences around the time? Like, talk us through, did you have mentors or were you sort of forging your own way? What did sort of your development look like at this stage in your career?
I guess my dad was probably my biggest mentor. He was very good footballer himself and probably one of the best coaches I've ever had as well. It was just a great people's person and manager, and really got the best out of his players just through, that really motivating and encouraging and supporting coach that kept things, kept everyone together. So he was probably my main mentor with the coaching and teaching side of things. He didn't have the teaching background. He's still with us. It sounds like he's a plumber, but just that came naturally. So I suppose that's where that came from. And early on, probably another coach that didn't coach me, but was an ex-AFL player, was Nathan Clark, who was on the Brisbane Lions list, probably played about 6 or 7 games. He was a coach, went down and coached East Lakes as a young captain coach as well. So really leaned on him for some advice as a young captain coach, and just sort of tried to learn some lessons, what he went through as well. Nathan Clark, he's a ripping coach up here in Queensland as well. And he's involved in the Simon Black Academy at the moment. So continually looking at what they do and learning off Clarkie and those type of blokes. They're really good football people. Yeah.
Yeah. On that topic for development and learning, so mentors obviously important, like you mentioned. What are some other sort of ways and methods that you've used to sharpen your craft over the years?
Yeah, I guess just taking up any opportunity, whether it be with the beauty of probably my other job as a PE teacher is coaching different sports, viewing different programs from basketball to volleyball to water polo. They've done a bit of work with rugby union and things like that, just through the PE teaching. And you'll learn a lot from, and you've probably done the same, Jack, where you go to other sports and you look at that and you take little bits from other sports and think, hey, this is what maybe can improve our game as well. And you look at a lot of AFL programs that they get rugby league and rugby union blokes to come in to help with their tackling. And why wouldn't you? Like, let's get the experts in and let's learn off other sports. I love going to watch junior soccer training. The organisation and the progressions and the structure they have around training, to me, is just it's a really high class. And I can go to any club and look at that, and I just look at that and how can I implement that into AFL sessions? How can I educate coaches, particularly up here in Queensland, to sort of look like that? Because I think, obviously, being a world game, they're probably a little bit ahead of our industry at the moment. Would you agree with that, or is that
With
With
rugby league, you
soccer?
say?
Nah, probably
Oh, soccer.
soccer.
Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. From the technical side of things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just look at some of the programs, and I think we can learn a lot. And you'll notice a lot of AFL coaches that they do travel and go look at programs over in Europe and in the States, whatever it is, and learn from other sports. So I think that's a big thing in our code at the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
100%. I did notice that Sam Mitchell was actually big at that on Hawthorn from the technical side.
Yeah, was he? Yeah,
And that's where I grew awareness of it. That how and Clarko is well known for, like you said, just getting on and networking with lots of head coaches in all other codes like NFL and
yeah,
just taking bits and pieces. It also probably gets you thinking a bit more laterally, doesn't it? If you get stuck in a bubble in anything in life, you
yeah.
can be quite narrow-minded. Whereas if you sort of have that exploration mode by
Mm.
looking at different things, it just you might not think of something until you see something done differently. So
Yeah,
yeah, I like it,
exactly.
mate.
Yeah,
That's a really good point.
yeah. And I think
When
sorry, I think there's a lot of coaches when I go around and travel to clubs. I think that's they because they've grown up in a footy environment, and they've I think we need to look outside our bubble a little bit as well. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do, and we're just trying to get better, and so hopefully we can assist other coaches with that as well.
and with that, as you sort of process, as you um, going about working on ways to work on your craft over the years, like will it be something through research that you've seen and you're like, oh, that tickles your fancy, so you'll sort of focus on that for a few weeks and sharpen that area of your coaching? Or is it more needs basis depending on certain athletes that you're working with, and you've got an athlete in mind that you're working on one-on-one and you're thinking, okay,
Yeah,
this drill's not working, what I need to go find another drill? Like, take us through sort of your thought process on when
yeah,
you're researching,
yeah.
where's the why coming from, I guess? What's the purpose?
Yeah, I think it's a needs basis. We're working with so many different people, and there's no one fix for one athlete. Like we're working with different size athletes, different shapes, different genders. So we will continually try things, and sometimes it just doesn't work. So we've got to. That's what we try and do. Yeah, we're looking for other solutions, and it's a bit of trial and error sometimes, Jack. Like we're not going to get it right all the time. Sometimes you might just nail it and the kicking technique's working and it's all looking beautiful, but other times it just might take a little bit longer. So yeah, very individual needs basis. And I think we've got to be willing to trial things and be willing to fall forward and fail, and then try again and come up with a new strategy. So that's what we're continually doing. And it's a big challenge because we're working with kids of 8 years old to dads that are 50 that want to learn kicking to teach their sons or mums, and that's we love doing that. It's so good that we've had a few recently. So I reckon it's awesome doing that sort of stuff too.
Yeah, it's great, mate. I love watching your YouTube clips, Instagram, the
Yeah.
commentating as well. But you really break down the purpose of the drill. You can
Yeah.
tell the teaching side comes through in your content.
Mm.
And that was another thing that just popped up in my head. Like Choco later on, once he had to go, mentioned how much he loved seeing you using the pills, and that's when he reached out to you. But he saw a
Yeah.
clip or something like that on
Yeah.
YouTube, and
Yeah.
who's this guy in Queensland doing the drills using the precision ball, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool in today's world. How if that happened 50 years ago, no one would really hear
You'd
about
never
it.
know.
But
Yeah.
now we can sort of connect in that space. Take
Yeah.
us through the creation of Enhanced Football.
Yeah.
How did it all come about?
Yeah. So I've been doing it for probably like a long time without the official sort of branding and things like that. So just been helping out some young kids on the Sunshine Coast for probably 7 or 8 years. And it hasn't been a big program, but just some individual kids sporadically throughout the years. And then, like many businesses, through the times of COVID, when I was at home teaching online, I just thought, I was a lot of people coming to me saying there's actually not a huge amount of AFL resources on YouTube online. And that's when the idea clicked, and I just thought I'm really going to try to share as much as my teaching knowledge, my football knowledge from when I was young to now. I want to just share as much as I can, and I think that's why we've grown pretty quickly, is because I'm really willing to share. I'm not holding anything back. I just want to make coaches' lives easier. I want to help kids. I want to help senior footballers. And it's a bit of advice actually I got off Rugby Bricks. I don't know if you've seen him on Instagram. So I saw his Instagram and I just thought, mate, this is a brilliant account. And he goes into a lot of the kicking technique with the conversions they kick off the tee. And I've learned a lot off that, just looking at of his stuff and transferred it to AFL. But I just asked him for some advice, what to do on Instagram. Because initially I thought, should I be sharing so much? And he goes, Ben, the key, whatever you got, you just got to be willing to share. You got to be willing to share it. Then when you create programs later on, people will be happy to purchase it if your stuff's good, basically. And I thought that was good advice, because I think some people do hold back. Like there are a lot of
100%. Yeah.
There's a lot of AFL accounts out there that they're great. Don't get me wrong, but I still think they're holding stuff back. Like just let's let it out there, and like your stuff's great too. Like all your exercises are out there. That's all your stuff you do for your strength and conditioning. Like it's there for if people want to find it, isn't it?
I had the same advice early stages with Propelic Pro and Nicholas Scott, who ran a gym, and he said, always give first, and it does pay dividends later, and it just resonated with me. And I have had the same experience, man. I think it's just you just go for it, so it's just more motivating as well, because you're trying to discover new content, learn new things, and then understand it, and then to be able to then teach it. So you have to really refine your philosophy and be clear. But people reach out, and especially with COVID times, like you said, you get some nice messages about how helpful it is, and how the tips and stuff help. So you can make a bigger, which is what we all want to do as coaches, is make an impact. You can make it such a big impact by doing it. That way.
Like I'm used to having an impact just with a team, and that's brilliant. Like it is a great experience to win premierships as a coach and have an impact on not just a team, but a football club community. Like that's a great feeling. And you've done that at the top level too, Jack, like where you're involved in a great environment. But what we're doing now, I suppose, is we're having an impact on people in Australia and around the world, which still astounds me. Like I get messages from Japan and Poland, and there's
learning how to kick footy.
Yeah, like it's amazing. And like you said, how good is it when you get those messages of people appreciating just those gratitude messages? And I reshare them, because I think it's for people to take the time to write a message and say thank you. I reckon it's amazing. So I really appreciate when that happens. It makes all the hard work worth it, I reckon.
And talk us through. You've mentioned so have you got some coaches that help you out at Enhanced Football as well?
Yeah, so probably the main one's Belle, and she finds it hard because the AFLW schedule and lifestyle is very challenging. These girls are just amazing. They're basically full-time athletes, training as hard as anyone, but yet they're expected to work. And she's got other jobs as well, and she helps me out, and she's trains as hard as anyone I've ever seen. So she'd be the main one, and then we just have some great coaches around the place that we get for our holiday programs and things like that. So, but to give you an example, Belle and I went to a great football club in Brisbane called Sherwood the other day. We left here at 6 a.m. in the morning. We did a clinic at 8 to 11, another one at 1 to 4, and then we trained their senior women's team 6 to 8, and we got home at about 10 o'clock. So, a big day, and I was pretty tired, but she had energy the whole way through. And if you've seen her play footy, and you've met her, Jack, you understand that she's just an energizer bunny. So it's good to have people like that around.
Yeah, you can feed off them. That's impressive to do that off that's a solid day.
It's a big day.
and for those listening that are interested to work with yourself, like I mentioned in the intro, there's digital products and obviously face-to-face products. What's sort of that's one day in your holiday program, so you got holiday programs that you guys offer when it's not school holidays time. How does it fit in with your school teaching? Mornings.
So mornings, afternoons, and weekends as well. So we do a lot of private lessons, the one-on-one stuff, and that's where you get great value in that, just to spend one-on-one time for an hour with someone, just working on whatever part of the game. Like it could be ground balls, but most people want that help with kicking. And then we do small groups, larger groups. We go to see teams. And then for the people that can't get in contact with us, that where we don't have staff members, we have our online programs, and they've been really successful. And really, the idea come from your industry, Jack, where we've all gone to a gym, and you rock up to a gym and you just get lost. You're like, what do I do? It's much easier if you got someone writing a program for you. So our app is very simple. All you need is your phone, and it's got the training session with all the videos of Bal and I doing the drills. It's all outlined for you. So it's basically like your own AFL personal trainer in your pocket. So at the moment we've got a pre-season program and a kicking program, which are going along really well, and the feedback's been good so far. So yeah, it's going good.
Awesome, mate. Yeah, on the topic that we were discussing before about giving, Brett Barclay's just written through a message. He's listening to the live chat, and he's written to you, said, "I'm glad you shared. I have used drills for our boys at Marucci Roos."
Oh,
so
awesome.
There you go, mate.
Yeah. And Maroochydore, for those, it's a huge club up here, and footy in Queensland is thriving. They've got over probably 500 juniors, boys and girls, and they've been really proactive in seeking us out to give something back to their community. So we did a kicking analysis for every single kid at the club. So I would send through the coach with the whole team, and I'll do the kicking analysis, and the feedback from the parents. They really appreciated that the club invested just in something a little bit extra in that. So I'm not sure if it's been done before, but it was a big job. Doing over 500 boys and girls, sending through video feedback for each. So it was a really good experience, and it'll be interesting to look back to see if any of them, in a few years, they might be playing AFL or good level of footy around Queensland. So it'd be good to reflect back on. It's all saved somewhere.
Yeah. So how did that practically work? Did they all film their own technique as a parent and send it through, or?
No, I went out to training. So I'd go out and run like the 30-minute kick education session, like where we go through the technique, break it down, do some drills. And then I would film them as a team. So just get them rolling through, kicking on the run. And then I'd share the YouTube clip with the coach, and then they would sit down. Exactly the videos you see on my Instagram, same sort of stuff. And I wouldn't, with the 10-year-olds, I might give them 3 things they're doing well and 1 thing to improve. So a bit more detailed for the older ones.
Yep. I love it. That's great service. And going back to the creation of enhanced football for the small business owners listening in to the podcast, whether they own a gym or they're a football coach and they're a teacher like yourself, and they want to start to create more coaching opportunities like you've done. Take us through when you're a teacher and you're coaching at the time. How did you sort of build the courage, or how did the motivation come, I guess, to create enhanced football? You mentioned it was organic. Do you remember the moment where you went live and went for it?
Yeah, I think it's it's what makes you happy and what you're passionate about. It's something I've always loved teaching, but there's this extra love for football and AFL and teaching that. Like, it's just, I think it's just the best game in the world, as you probably do, Jack. And it's the culture around it, the game itself. I'm just so passionate about making it better and helping people in the game, whether that be coaches, parents, kids. And I suppose the thing that I didn't expect, and I was actually speaking to Bal the other night about it, was the passion I've got for women's footy now. It's really, really big, and I wouldn't have done that. And I said it to Bal, if I didn't reach out to her and we just did 1 session just to see if we clicked, if it worked, I don't think it would have grown, and I would have had the same sort of passion for women's footy as I do now. So it sort of just happened, and like you said, organically. And I'm really glad it did, because how good's women's footy? It's just thriving, loving it.
Yeah, that's uncanny timing. It was obviously meant to be you two that doing that, because it's the industry, like you said, it is pretty much straight vertical in the direction it's going. I think it's been in the media now. We'll talk about it off air, where they'll be full-time athletes in 2026, which is a huge carrot for for those footballers that aren't professional at the moment but are working towards that as a goal. The growth has just been massive ever since day one, really. Is that something that, like, what would be your ratio for female clubs and male, but also private athletes? Like,
I would actually say it'd be probably 60% female, 40% male at the moment, particularly with our private sessions. And then the team stuff and the other, it might be pretty even, but definitely the private and the small group sector. It probably comes across on Instagram too. I get so many girls, and I think it's, whether it's because maybe girls from like sort of Belle's age, maybe they didn't get the kicking practice at a young age that a boy would have. I'm not too sure. But they just need the help and support with their kicking. And from what I've found, like, they're working with all the Lions girls and all the girls up here in Queensland that are wanting to, that are wanting to get to that level. They're just sponges. Like, they just want to learn. They want to try new things. And it's really a pleasure to coach them because they're willing to learn. And their respect levels are through the roof. They always thank you, and just those little things make a difference. So really enjoying it.
And with the Lions program, how did that look over a week? How much time did you get with the girls? And did you was it homework sessions type of setup, or was it all face-to-face coaching? How did the sort of schedule look?
Yeah, so it sort of started with that a few of them were coming up to see me, like, privately. And it was, because Belle, and she started to see improvements, and then she must have recommended, and the couple came up. And then they started to get me to go down to do some pre-season work. So it was face-to-face. And that was a mix of actually in there running the drills under Craig's guidance and things like that. But also taking certain individuals out, that may have been in rehab or whatever, and just working on technique stuff. And mostly to do with kicking. And they were really interested in it. The whole team, just trying to give them one area to work on, to hopefully make them a better kick. And, I think we saw improvements, but there's still a way to go, with all kicking in both leagues, I think. So, it was a good experience, and really good to see a great program down there. The way they train is just phenomenal. I was so impressed with how hard they train and their commitment to it. So I couldn't speak highly enough of it. And
what were some key pillars that you were focusing on for the developing footballers that are listening in? What are some professional athletes? What were the key areas of focus
in regards to kicking?
For kicking,
So I suppose the main one that I was trying to introduce, like, kicking on the run has got to be the most important thing, right? So when you're kicking on the run, we've got to give ourselves a bit of room. So I call it the pushing phase. So we've got to actually push the ball out. And you look at the best kicks in the comp, your Bonson-Pallies, your Daniel Rich, your Pendleburys, all those type of blokes. All the photos I put up on Instagram, just have a look at how they actually get the ball and they push the ball out with nice relaxed arms. A lot of coaches, particularly in the female programs, they're so obsessed with a low ball drop that they actually turn them into robots and their arms don't move. So we want them to be a little bit more relaxed, push the ball out to allow all the body segments to come through fluently. So that was one of the main ones, just getting them more fluent on the run. And when you push it out like that, it can help your body position. It can help your fluency. And I suppose the other one would be ball grip. The girls have a big challenge in particular with ball grip, and some of the younger boys as well. And I always say, I never use hand size as an excuse. And I don't want coaches to do it as well, because hand size is no excuse. If you've got a good grip, you can control the footy down with practice and correct instruction. So probably those two things, the grip and that pushing phase to help them on the run.
Another one's tuned in, Marie Putardi, and she's just written, have enjoyed your video content, Ben, and use them often for some one-on-one training. So
awesome.
We'll go into the challenges, both from a business point of view. You could talk about from a schedule point of view of managing teaching and coaching. or just coaching in itself? What's a big challenge that you've faced over the last few years since enhanced football's been released, and what did you learn from it?
I suppose, the challenge with the balance of teaching and enhanced football, at the moment, that there is potential there that we could make this into a full-time type thing during the day, but it is a little bit hard because kids are at school. And that's where most of my clientele is in that, that 10 to 18 region. So probably that's the challenge, is how to engage people during those times. And I suppose that's that online stuff, building that. But there's nothing like face-to-face, as you know, Jack, in your industry, the same, isn't it? So, the challenge of that, of scheduling in with the teaching and the enhanced football is constant. But that's just finding the right staff and all of those things that all business owners are got their challenges with. And what was the other one, mate?
Or even just from a coaching perspective, what's I guess you could reframe the question in what's been the biggest learning you've had over the last few years? So I guess if you're talking to yourself 3 years ago, sort of thing.
I guess probably one of my strengths was that I really do try to get to know the athlete first, because I think if they don't trust in you, and if they don't value and respect you and all of those things that take time, the message probably doesn't sink in enough. So, I thought I was really good at it 3 years ago, but I reckon I'm much, much better now. Just got to get to know them. And it's, again, same in your industry. Once you really get to know them, you don't always have to ask questions about football and kicking. Talk to them, get to know them, and then you're going to see much, much better results as the weeks go on. So that'd be my main sort of little bit of growth through there. And I guess probably one of the other ones that coaches feel, and I feel, when you get bigger groups, the challenge is that differentiation of, we've got all different levels of footballers. We want to challenge the top end. We want to push the bottom end to try and improve. And, we don't want the top end to get bored, all those type of things. It's one of the main questions coaches ask me, and it's still one that I find, particularly at junior level, is probably the hardest thing to deal with, is how do we cater for such a wide variety of different learning styles and stages of learning, I suppose. So it's a tough one.
That's a good topic of discussion for the coaches tuned in. What are some actionable tips that you found useful to help, like you said, keep the best kickers still engaged and getting something out of it? The ones that maybe are lacking confidence or new to the sport, that aren't as skilled, making sure they've got a focus area, and then the middle tier as well. So that, like you said, there's 3 different tiers. How do you tackle that?
And it's one that at a club level, which there might be coaches listening, that is hard. Like, you don't want to always just group your top 6 players together, because that can cause some issues with culture and confidence and things like that around the club. So, and it's also important to note that, it's important that the better players are mixed in with your middles or your lesser end players, because they're going to learn by watching and feeling and seeing what they're doing as well. So I just think you've got to mix it up. You've got to give the top end players a chance to mix with each other. But you've also, you just got to be flexible and put a bit of variety in there, I suppose. That'd be my advice.
And what about from the digital side of things, for those that do have a digital business? You mentioned the impact it can have by knowing your athletes, having that connection, that rapport. I work remotely as well with athletes, and I guess this is probably a selfish question that I'm asking you, but you're working with digital products where you might not see the athletes. What are some ways that you go about building that relationship with athletes that are following your app? You may not see them. They might not be booking private sessions either on Zoom. What would be some ways to try and build that sort of connection, do you think?
It is really hard. Excuse me. We're using a platform called Max One, and it's an American platform that they use in the college system over there. And I suppose the only way, and I've got a lot of clients that I haven't actually had a face-to-face chat like this. But we've got a service within the app where we're constantly messaging them, asking for updates, seeing if they need more support, anything like that. And some get back to you, some are happy just going along because it's quite interactive, as your stuff would be. But yeah, it is hard, isn't it? It's a hard one. As long as you're just communicating as much as you can, offering support. Some will take it up, but some are happy just to go on their own journey, I reckon.
Yeah, it's a good point. I guess at the end of the day, if they've got a good platform, like you said, the main purpose is the structure and direction, and if the videos are doing the job and then they're getting that service, then they're happy. So it's I guess it is a bit different probably to then more the face-to-face element. Is that how you sort of see it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But yeah, it's just something that I think it's important to have for any of the business owners. Excuse me. Yeah, it's an important thing to have an online program, I think, as you're offering. And you know, it does take a lot of time, doesn't it, Jack, with all the videos and the planning of the programs. But once it's in place, it can go along pretty well. So yeah, we're pretty happy with the progress of it. And check out Max One platform if other businesses want to look at that, because I've been pretty impressed with their process and their communication throughout as well.
Yeah, we'll add the link in the show notes.
Yeah,
if people want to easily check it out. What about the content creation side of things? You haven't mentioned a marketing sort of background.
No.
So I imagine you've learned it on the go. You've done a good job of it. I saw you recently post today at 2,000 followers on YouTube, which is awesome, and strong Instagram following as well. So how much structure is there? Like, do you have like a schedule that you're with themes based? Is it more fluid? Talk us through sort of processes.
Yeah, no real structure. We just try to be really consistent on Instagram. That's been our we were really focused on YouTube early. So that sort of gathered a fair bit of momentum. And then probably in the last 12 months, Instagram has been our major focus. And a lot of the feedback we get is that people like it because it's continual, it's constant. It's always there, and there's always helpful things. So as you know, it does take time. I still do it all myself at the moment because I find it's such specific information that I'm trying to educate people that I, potentially could get others to help, but I want it to be, really meaningful and valuable for our followers. And that's sort of the feedback we're getting. So, don't really have the marketing background, but learning as we go. And if anyone's got any tips how we can improve or get better, I'd love to listen and hear as well. So I enjoy it though. Do you enjoy that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Well, it's a steep learning curve, isn't it? Because I literally didn't even have Instagram maybe 2.5 years ago.
Neither. Facebook.
So old school Facebook.
Yeah.
I reckon MySpace was my prime.
I love MySpace.
Pick your song.
Yeah. And my song was "That's the Thing About Football." Geez, I love that. That was my song on MySpace. Loved it.
Classic. Bring it back. Eh?
Yeah, bring it back.
We'll get into the lighter side of the podcast, mate.
Yeah,
have a bit of fun with these, but it's a bit of the get to know Ben segment. So first one is, which movie or TV series has made the biggest impact on you? And why?
Well, I'll just mention one that it hasn't had a huge impact, but one that I'm not into car racing at all. I find it really boring. But I've just started watching the F1 series on Netflix. And I think there's been about 4 seasons. So I'm back. It's about 2017 and 18 at the moment. But it's fantastic. Like, I'm into it now, like looking at Daniel Ricciardo's journey from Red Bull, changing teams. And it just gives you a really good insight into a different sport completely, and the money involved. It's phenomenal. Yeah, I'd recommend that one. But I do like your documentaries, anything about Michael Jordan's, Kobe Bryant's, I get sucked into pretty quick. Have a look at that one. Check that F1 one out.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I'm in the same boat. It's not a sport I'm aware of or have had much experience in, but it'd be good to have that eye-opening experience. And you do value something when you've got a better understanding of it, don't you?
You do, yeah, yep. Yeah,
what about favorite inspirational quote or life motto?
Oh, there's so many, isn't there? It's a hard one. I think like probably the motto thing. I just love people that like you just got to be yourself. And that's I tell I try to be myself as much as I can. And you look at the best coaches in the industry right now, like Chris Fagan and things like that. He's just himself, isn't he? He's not trying to be anyone else. He's very aware of who he is. And that's what I'm trying to be, just not change for anyone. I am who I am. And that's why, again, I spoke to, just because I was with Bell the last few days, but yeah, spoke to Bell about it. And I said, please don't you ever change, because you are like, this is who you are, and people will love it. Like once she gets into the media more and things like that, I just think she's going to explode, because she's different. She's energetic and things like that. So just be yourself, and let it happen. Yeah.
On the flip side of that, what are your pet peeves in your work life? What makes you angry?
Oh, what makes me angry? I do get frustrated when people, like when they're not willing to adjust or change when results aren't good. So if I give them a kicking drill or a test or something like that, and the results are really not showing, or their statistics, their kicking efficiency isn't showing, a great sort of outcome, I get frustrated when people don't want to try things differently to get better. And it does happen in our industry. Like, it happens with me, and it's very rare, where you might get an athlete come in and they want help, and then you show them where their deficiencies are and where they can improve, but there's just that reluctancy there that what they're doing is what they've always done and what they were taught 10 years ago. They don't want to, adjust. And I really find that hard to believe when you had Kevin Ball on the other week. He said, how many times has Tiger Woods changed his swing? Was it 6 or 5? Yeah. And so I think there's space, like, senior footballers around the country, that if you keep getting feedback that your kicking is letting you down, do something about it. Go out and find someone. There's plenty of good people out there, and then just be willing to try things and accept feedback. So yeah, that's sort of one for me.
Yeah, it's a good point, because there is a lot of fear, especially like you mentioned with older athletes making a change, and there's probably no bigger skill in a sport than golf. And probably one of the best players ever to play the game. Like you said, change his shot. I think Michael Jordan changed his shot later on, when you mentioned him earlier in the podcast.
Yeah. And then I had a
game, so the best athletes do it.
Yeah, I was working with a guy from South Australia, Matty, and he's moves around. He came to Queensland. I think he just had to move back home, but he's always been a good kick. And but his coaches kept saying that it just doesn't look fluent, and it's something that's held him back in that probably going further with his footy. But no one ever gave him the answers to it. They just said, mate, your kicking's just not quite up to scratch. You just don't look fluent enough. And he kept asking for answers and feedback, but that's all he was getting for 5 years. And then he's got people like Choco who worked with him, made a difference. Then he come to see me. We made a bit of a difference. So he's always searching just for little ways to get better. And he would have taken stuff from Choco, made him better, came to us. Like, I know exactly what we made him better with. And he does now look to me like a fluent kick. And he's improved at the age of like 27. So it can be done. if you want, it can be done.
Yeah. Keep an open mind, hey?
Yeah, you got to. Yeah.
What about this is COVID-free world, which we're pretty much in now, which is great. What do you think is to spend your day off?
Just with the family. I've got twins here at home, so where they love, just your normal stuff, bike riding. We live if you haven't, people listening, if you've ever been up to the Sunshine Coast or you haven't been here, I'd recommend it. It's a beautiful part of the world. So we've got lots of options. Beach, we can go up to the mountains. We can, there's lots of options here, very outdoors. So anything like that, and try to go for a kick with them as much as we can. They're only 6, so I've got to calm down a little bit, but trying to implement that already. But more interested in the bike riding and mountain climbing at the moment, I think, the little ones.
Yeah, plenty of action. It's good
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
what
good.
about broad favorite holiday destination?
It was always my dream to go to America, and I went there when I was, after school. Went just traveled, watching the NBA, the NFL. Yeah, I just love that sort of stuff. So yeah, went lucky enough to go over and watch, Kobe Bryant, who was one of my all-time heroes, and got to see him live, and got to go to lots of NFL games. So that was my number one place. But now with a family, it's probably going to be Bali, Thailand, all those type of things. Fiji.
Yeah. Yep. Picking it back, recharge the batteries.
Yeah. But again, living in Queensland, we're very, very lucky. It's just we sometimes just take the caravan down to Cotton Tree Park, which is 5 minutes away, and just go down there and plonk it on the beach for a while. So that's not bad either.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. Well, yeah, thanks for jumping on the podcast again and
No worries,
to
Jack.
spend time with you and share your journey, no doubt, for developing footballers, coaches, and even those that are on the edge on whether to launch their own business or not. I think you've given them some good inspiration to do so. Talk us through what's on the horizon for 2022. What are you excited about?
Yeah, so excited to build our online platform, and we're really excited to get out to more local clubs, because that's, as we, the stuff online is great, but just going out to clubs and educating coaches, running team sessions for kids, for senior teams, that's what we love doing, and that's where we can really make a difference. So loving getting around doing that. So at the moment, most of it is here in Queensland, but probably the aim is to go a little bit more nationally. And we're constantly getting messages from people from Melbourne, from South Australia, from Western Australia, asking if we've got staff in these areas. And I do have a few getting around in Melbourne, and we've got to probably get a little bit better in that area and expand there. So that's probably the next step, Jack, is to look a bit more nationally, I think.
That's exciting. Awesome, mate. Yeah, well done so far, and looking forward to the future is bright with an enhanced football. So looking forward to collaborating more, mate, with our brands. It's good to be able to connect through these platforms, and like you said, give as much content as we can to help footballers. For those that are interested in working with you, where's the best place to head?
Yeah, just probably Instagram. That's because I'm always on it. Just DM us on Instagram. If you want to make it more formal, enhancedfootball@gmail.com. But yeah, looking, to be honest, I probably would target teachers that have got a footy background, but interested in anyone that's passionate, really, as well. So anyone that's passionate about educating and spreading the word and trying to help anyone out in relation to football, we would love to have a chat. So that'd be good if we could do that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll add the links and your email in the show notes. So for anyone listening in the podcast world, head there and hit up Ben, and you never know what could come from it. Have a chat.
You never know.
You never know. Well, thanks again, mate.
Who's your tip for the grand final, Jack? Men's.
Melbourne.
Melbourne, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but to be honest, it would be right now if I I would say just logically it looks like pretty strong squad, with good management and good belief, which seems to be a big factor in finals. What are you thinking? It's hard to know who's second, and Brisbane Doggies had a good win. Brisbane probably the second team. They're looking strong, and they're strong at home. I think
they are.
They've got a record in the last 40 games at home.
Yeah. So I initially threw a bit of a weird. I thought I just threw Sydney out there early. I still think Sydney can grow, but probably Melbourne or Brisbane. I went to watch Brisbane on last night, and they do look good, and they've still got some strength to come back in with, like your Eric Hipwoods. And so if you get Hipwood, McStay, and Joe Danaher up forward, there's some three big pillars that I reckon could cause some damage. So be interesting, be good.
Yeah, it'll be exciting.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. And really, I love what you're doing as well, mate. It's just, like I said, we're learning all off each other, and now I think that's the best thing. So it's really good.
Yeah, 100%. Likewise, mate. And thanks for everyone that's tuned in. If you tuned in late during the live show, you can watch the recording from the very start. Definitely recommend it. Ben's dropped some solid gems all the way through from the very beginning. We actually had We didn't even muck around with an intro. We got straight into the good stuff at the start. So, make sure to tune in to the very beginning. You can do that on our YouTube channel, and then the podcast will be released next Tuesday on our podcast platforms, where you can listen to any in the podcast directory, whatever your favorites are. Our next live chat will be with Justin Doherty, who's the rehab physiotherapist at the Sydney Swans. So I'll see you guys then. That's 8:30 p.m. next Friday, which is, what's the date today? That'll be about the 20th of May, would be my guess, but I'll post it now. So